It's one of life's great pleasures, isn't it? Fresh air, some exercise, beautiful scenery. What could be better?
I'm going to smack you in the bloody mouth in a minute.
That footpath goes over that way, and this is the one we want down.
No footpath down through those fields.
Well, that's what it shows on our map.
Wonderful, almost 360-degree wrap-round view.
Right now, my man, please.
Now you've got to help me.
You're bloody not, bro. You're bloody harassing me.
Well, you just said I was. Now I'm not.
Well, piss off.
Ordnance Survey Pathfinder maps are a walker's best friend. They show footpaths and bridleways throughout England and Wales. So if you're a stranger to the area, a Pathfinder should keep you on the straight and narrow. I'm starting out in the area around Bath, a beautiful city with some outstanding countryside around it. But I've heard of one local footpath that's been causing problems, and I'm going to try and find out why.
So we've just come over the stile, yeah?
Yes.
And that footpath goes over that way, and this is the one we want, down towards the spring.
I'm walking the path with the James family, Terry and Kathy and their two children, Sophie and Rory.
Okay, that's it then, this way.
Problem number one, that sign on the stile back there deliberately points walkers away from our footpath. Problem number two, several fences have been erected blocking the line of the footpath. So we're having to go round by a gate. It's a nice house, isn't it? This is Chelscombe Farm. The footpath runs past the front of the house here.
You're trespassing.
Well, we've got a Pathfinder map here.
What map you've got, but you are trespassing?
We're on a...
That is an ordnance survey mechanism.
No, it's a Pathfinder.
I don't care what it is. It is not the definitive map.
Look, it's his mark.
It's not the definitive map. How did you get down here?
By following the footpath.
No, you did. What, that one right along the top there?
We came down through the field.
No, there's no footpath down through those fields.
Well, that's what it shows on our map.
It says so on the front.
I don't care what your things are. The footpath shows you clearly on the gate up there where you go, and you go along there and straight down into Weston. Now, if you don't believe me, you go and see the definitive map. And
it says keeps the footpath.
I don't care what it says. I'm telling you, there is only one footpath on this property.
But this
and you are trespassing. Now, will you kindly leave?
The lady's adamant that we're in the wrong. And anyway, we can see the path ahead is blocked with more fences. So we decide to go off and check the legal position. Every council in England and Wales has definitive maps for their area. Mostly they date from the 1950s, when the local authorities were required by law to record all public rights of way. It means that people using footpaths are exercising rights protected by law, rather than enjoying privileges granted by landowners.
And this is where, this is Chelscombe Farm, and you can see that it's shown as a purple line on this map. Purple is for a footpath. If it's on the definitive map, it's conclusive proof of its existence as a public right-of-way.
So if somebody stops us from walking what we've established to be a legal path, is it a criminal matter or a civil matter, or how does it?
They are committing the criminal offence under the Highways Act 1980. The Highway Authority has a duty to protect and assert the rights of the public to use public rights of way, and if anybody stops them from doing it, they can prosecute them under that act.
So they can be taken to court?
Yes, they can be taken to court, yes.
Anyway, the map shows two footpaths starting from the same point. This is the one we tried to follow, number 512. The path runs straight down and past the farmhouse and on down to the village of Weston in the valley. We've also found out that the long-standing owners of Chelscombe Farm are the three elderly Ford sisters. So we've come back to try to clear the matter up, armed this time with a copy of the definitive map. Good morning.
Morning.
We were here last week.
You were, yes, I saw you.
And we've been to the council and we've got a photocopy of the
It's
definitive
going
map.
to the council. You go and see the definitive map.
This is a photocopy taken this week of the definitive map.
I don't care what they tell you. We're not interested. I've seen the definitive map. You've not. Now go and... It is not.
Look, what more can we do? You say go and get the definitive map.
Go
and get the definitive
If the ladies feel so strongly about the footpath, then there are legal ways they could go about getting it diverted. What's not legal is for them to obstruct and harangue walkers who attempt to use the footpath.
You are trying to force something that is not there. And what's more,
You've got the fences up.
No, we do.
yes, you do know it's not there.
This map, Kathy, this map shows the path coming down through here. I don't think our arguments are cutting much ice. The ladies have already blocked the path with fences and a misleading sign. They're not about to let us walk the footpath, whatever the law may say.
You know what you're doing.
Well, then you better
Go
remember.
and tell them we stopped you.
What?
Go back and tell them we won't let you through.
Oh, we certainly shall. The three ladies have been stopping walkers from using the path for years now. Word's got around, so hardly anyone walks the path anymore. After all, who wants a confrontation when you're out for a quiet country walk? But it's a shame. It could be a lovely footpath.
Thank you very much.
I think we've got the message, so we're calling it a day.
Until you do, you're not coming.
We had the council.
Anyone who goes walking regularly will have heard the stories, if they haven't had the experience firsthand. The angry landowner, the furious farmer, and incidents happen all over the country. I'm heading up to the Greater Manchester area to a troublesome footpath by the village of Aspel, which is near Wigan. As before, we've checked the definitive map to make sure that legally we're on solid ground. Sure enough, footpath number 26 runs through Landlord's Farm. William Hurst bought the farm 10 years ago, when the footpath was already well established. Since then, he's abused and threatened local people who've tried to use the path. I'm with two local enthusiasts, Gloria Gaffney and Don Lee. Don knows the history and importance of footpath 26 better than just about anyone.
See, the reason why there's such a lot of interest in this footpath is because it's about 5 minutes walk away from a local beauty spot called Borsdale Wood.
Right.
And Borsdale Wood is where people are going to or from, and they want to get to and from there by these lots of footpaths.
Yes.
So, although it just looks like an ordinary footpath, in fact it's got great potential leisure possibilities, especially as this is going to be made into a kind of country park.
The path runs through the farmyard here. It's quite difficult to work out exactly where the footpath is, and these buildings have recently appeared on the line of the path. So we'll need to take a way round.
That's the way, thank you. You just go that way, please.
Hey, this is a footpath.
No, it isn't.
We went to the
We are now allowed to use.
What are you doing?
We're now allowed to use personal physical force, as long as we don't hurt you, to eject you off the premises. And that's what I'm doing.
material in that way.
And that's what I'm doing.
But you have.
They're perfect, lady.
I know what I'm doing. I'm walking the footpath.
You're going through off the farmyard.
I'm walking the footpath. You're not using just physical force. You're hitting me.
No, I'm not
You
pushing you
are
off the...
hitting me.
I am pushing you off the
This is
yard.
a legal right of way.
No, it isn't.
It is so.
If you just can't leave, otherwise we're going to start getting really physical.
Are you?
Yeah.
Look.
No, come on.
Now look, we're walking a public right
No,
way.
you aren't.
We're walking a footpath.
Come on.
We're not out of order. Look.
Do you mind harassing me?
I'm going to smack you in the bloody mouth in a minute.
That's very charming.
Come on.
We are walking
We're going to the footpath.
This is the footpath.
No, it isn't.
You put new material here.
Oh, thank you very much.
But why have you blocked
Thank
the
you.
footpath?
To keep people like you off.
But we're walking a legal right of way.
Go to the council and report.
We went to the council.
Go to the council.
We've been
and
to the
report me.
We've been to the council, and they told us it was still a right of way. He's threatening me.
Public footpath, but never has been.
It's on the definitive map.
It says first bars outside the buzz's clever clogs, but they don't
You said
fucking
that,
tell them.
but it's still on the map.
Get off.
We're going, okay?
I'm just about going to lose my rag, but one of you's going to get hurt.
This is getting dangerous, so we decide that discretion is the better part of valour. Well, that was quite incredible. We've come across abuse before, but never physical violence just like that. I mean, it really got quite nasty. And I just don't understand why some landowners object to reasonable people having a quiet walk on what is quite definitely a right of way. It just beggars belief. It's really quite frightening. Is everybody else all right here? In fact, Gloria had to go to hospital later with bruised ribs. Footpath 26 is not a place for the innocent or the faint-hearted. I want to find out if my experiences at Bath and Manchester are isolated cases. This is Vauxhall in London, and if anyone will know the situation, it's the Ramblers, with over 100,000 members nationwide.
We've heard of lots of cases up and down the country. The Countryside Commission recently published some results from a survey, and they showed that 1 path in 4 is either difficult or impossible to use. That's an awful lot of paths on over 100,000 miles of paths in England and Wales. And a lot of those are paths blocked by landowners saying, "Thou shalt not pass."
So how do they actually go about stopping walkers?
They have a variety of ways. They will stand in front of you, they will lock up their gates, they will have dogs, they'll put signs up. One even hears at times threats of using shotguns and so on. So it's ramblers, but it's horse riders on bridleways as well.
Geographically, I've moved down in the world. This is Somerset. Socially, though, I've definitely moved up a notch. Diana Pearce and her daughter Jennifer are trying to ride what's called a rup. That's a road used as a public path. Surprisingly, there aren't many places hereabouts where riders can get off busy roads. The particular track we're heading for is a crucial link to other places. The rup runs down the hill and through Lower Clapton Farm. The owners of the farm dispute the track is a rup and are trying to have it deleted from the map. As the law stands, the track is still a rup, but the owners, the Masters family, deny riders have a right of access. Diana keeps trying to assert her right to ride the track. This time it's Nigel Masters who's striding out to block the gate.
For goodness sake.
I'm not listening, I'm not getting involved in any argument with you. Good morning.
You know, we have every right to be there, and you know it.
Good morning.
They're not going to do any harm, they just want to go up the bridleway.
Have you got a letter from Mrs. Smith saying that
I'm not interested. Good morning. Good morning.
Have you got a letter from Mrs. Smith saying it isn't?
Good morning.
Because we have a letter saying it is.
Mrs. Smith can say what she likes.
Mrs. Smith, by the way, is Somerset's Rights of Way officer.
Decision of
Perhaps I am.
Are you aware that you're breaking the law?
You best go back.
Are you,
Mrs. Smith, then, hadn't you?
Are you aware that you are breaking the
I'm
law?
not interested.
You are breaking the law because we do have a right of way.
I'm breaking the law then.
Good morning.
I'm afraid we're not getting anywhere with Mr. Masters. He's turned his back on us, and we're going to have to turn back ourselves. As we're leaving, Mrs. Marlene Masters, Nigel's mother, arrives and tells her side of the story.
Horses don't come down here, only Mrs. Pearce. Horses go anywhere.
But it's the only way to link up to the bridleway for the
But
rup.
it isn't public. It isn't public. It isn't public. I don't care if it's the only link there is.
But is it not being unreasonable?
No, if she asks me.
Not as unreasonable as lets her bloody horse shit outside my front door.
She's terrible.
The dispute between the Masters and Somerset Council was the subject of an inquiry 18 months ago. Both sides are awaiting the result. Meantime, Diana Pearce is not about to give up.
Because it's there, and because it is a legitimate route, and without it, the riding in this area would be greatly impoverished.
I'm off to a wee place near Doncaster. From the reports I've heard, this path's completely blocked and unwalkable.
Looks like it, yes.
Ken Gibson from Doncaster Ramblers is keeping me right this time. Ken's one of these horribly fit people. Ran up Ben Nevis as a youngster of 72. and equally determined to assert his rights to walk a footpath if he can. There are lots of ways of blocking a footpath, and we're about to encounter 5 of them.
No, oh no, 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 it's a right of way, this is. That's illegal, there's no argument about it.
Look at this. Obstruction number 1, barbed wire. 2, misleading notice. 3, piles of prickly undergrowth. It's the landowner's duty to keep the path clear.
I think that would even be hard. I mean,
Bear in mind that in law, a footpath like this is just as much part of the Queen's Highway as the M25. It's just that the authorities might react quicker to barbed wire across a motorway.
No chance at all. Shall we go and see what the other end's like?
Good idea, good idea. It might be a bit clearer, but...
Might have more luck there.
Aye. Anyhow, off we go then.
This is the footpath according to the definitive map. We've been blocked at this end, now we're going to try the other end of the path. This time we're under cover because we're passing the landowner's house. He's called Mr. Sheard. Right, where were we? Obstruction 4, wrecked cars across the footpath. 5, a mean-looking dog waiting to ambush unwary walkers.
Obviously they've done it to block the path. There's no question about that.
As we're leaving, Mr. Sheard and his son emerge from the fog. Even with the noise of the dogs, the message is clear.
No, it's not. It's took from the maps that's been fiddled, mate.
Over the years, the local council has repeatedly tried to open up the footpath, but the council employees have been intimidated by Mr. Sheard. Now, though, the council seems to be losing patience. They have the power to move in and clear all the obstructions and send the bill to the landowner. They could also prosecute them under the Highways Act. This is my neck of the woods, Porton Cross on the Ayrshire coast in the west of Scotland. A lovely spot. But not so lovely now. Last year, this suddenly appeared. Not some secret defence establishment or a high-security prison. It's Auchname's house, private residence of Mr. Alexander Duffus. Mr. Duffus seems to like his privacy. Local people have used a path up this ridge for years. It's a bit of a scramble, but the views are wonderful and there's the remains of an old fort at the top. But then Mr. Duffus came along. He didn't want people overlooking his house, but the path was on his neighbour's land. So he bought the adjoining strip, including the path, and installed his razor wire. Sorry, barbed tape. In England and Wales, this would be a blatant obstruction of a public footpath.
But this is Scotland, and the law on footpaths is very different here, and really most unsatisfactory. And the local people are very annoyed about this.
I've got no objections to people protecting their property, but I think that is a wee bit over the top.
And is there anything the council can do about this?
Well, this is actually one of the astonishing bits that I was discovered, that there is no government legislation for local authorities to use that can prohibit people from putting that razor wire on their own property.
The trouble is, most of the post-war legislation on rights of way doesn't apply to Scotland, so landowners here have no legal obligation to respect the rights of way on their property. Mr. Duffus can throw up his coils of razor wire, and people who used to enjoy a walk up the ridge are powerless to do anything. Be warned down there in England and Wales. Cherish your rights of way, or they could end up like this. I've got time for one last case, and it sounds really nasty. It's in Hereford and Worcester, which is by the Welsh border. I'm meeting Edgar Powell and some friends of his. Edgar represents the Open Spaces Society, another group campaigning for access to the countryside. He has painful first-hand experience of this particular landowner.
I first came to hear about him a few years ago from comments from other people in the area saying, "Gosh, have you heard of this man?" But my personal experience of him was when, walking across his land, he struck me with his shotgun, which at the time was in fact loaded.
So backed up by Edgar and his friends, I'm going to brave the footpath. Of course, we've chosen this particular path because the farmer who owns the land has a reputation in the area. But lots of visitors come to Hereford and Worcester for walking holidays, and any of them could by accident choose to walk this particular path. There are 2 paths across the land belonging to Hockley Farm. The one we intend to walk is number 37 on the definitive map. It starts from the road, crosses some fields, and then runs past Gerald Kincaid's farm and on to the village of Rock in the distance. We're checking to make sure we're on the right footpath. Mr. Kincaid has a fearsome reputation, and we don't want to trespass on his land by mistake. Here's the man now. He's trying to tell us to use the other footpath, which goes off in a completely different direction.
So till the stiles are up, you go that way, sir, and you don't cross my gates and sit on them.
No, but the stile...
You go by the stiles. The stiles are provided.
No,
There's no stile here, though.
There is stiles there.
Oh, here there should be one.
It is there. You follow the stiles, my friend. You follow the stiles.
Well, the path runs across here.
The path goes down there, my friend, and there's no stiles for you, and it says there. There it says it on it there. Doesn't it? Read the bloody notice.
As usual, we've checked and double-checked the route, and we know we're on the right of way, but our arguments don't seem to be impressing Mr. Kincaid.
You read the bloody notice and you stick to the footpath that's been there till the other ones are done. Right now, my man, please.
Now you're going to help me?
Come on, out of my face. Come on, please.
This is most unreasonable.
Isn't it?
It is most unreasonable.
After you cross on my gate. No, come on out.
No, this is not.
This is the right of way.
This is the right of way across here.
We've got every right to walk through here.
You see, is there a stile to cross? Till there's a stile, you don't cross here.
We've got every right to go down there.
Go on then. Right. Out here across the stile, my friend.
Careful.
Careful what?
Just be careful.
Shouldn't you? Go back and join the footpath.
No, this is a public footpath across here.
There is no stiles for you to use across here. When the council see to it, you see to it. No, the gate is not.
Isn't it?
No, sir. So out you get.
No.
Come on, out.
This is probably right away across.
You want me to fetch the police here?
We should be the ones calling the police, of course, but in cases like this, the police usually don't want to get involved, whatever the law may say.
There isn't. Just go on, out off the field.
No, this is...
Come on, out.
This is a public footpath.
Get out. Come on. Stick to the footpath where the stiles are. Come on, please.
Very unreasonable.
Join the stiles.
We have every right to be here.
You have every right to be on the footpath that's provided. To go onto it.
There isn't.
Yes, there is.
It's been...
Please, don't. He did. He put his elbow out to protect himself. You're a liar as well.
There's a path across here.
There isn't.
Go down that path down there.
The path is down there. You've just been sheer awkward.
Of course he is.
Making everybody's life a misery.
No, not at all.
You are.
At all?
Better to do.
You're making everybody...
Round 1 to Mr. and Mrs. Kincaid. As they drive off back to their house, we have a committee meeting, and the vote is to give footpath 37 one more go. It's not just that we have every right to walk the footpath, but it's simply not fair that one belligerent farmer should be able to turn a pleasant public footpath into a no-go area. Though I must admit there's some nervousness in the party after his performance at the gate. Here he comes again, this time brandishing a serious-looking stick.
Please don't come any farther. I'll use whatever force is necessary. I've told you. And I've seen your bloody face before. Yeah. So, till that's opened, you go with the footpath that's open. I provided for you. There is no right away here.
Police coming on
Back on the footpath.
Causing such a lot of trouble.
Well, it's just a public footpath.
Well, we've got to do
The footpath there. There's a footpath there, and the stiles provided. Use it. So I've just told you the footpath's back there.
And now Mr. Kincaid seems to be adding common assault to the various offences of obstruction he's already committed.
Well, I don't like being pushed, Mr. Kincaid.
He didn't know me.
Mrs. Kincaid has spotted one of the party with what she thinks is a tape recorder in her bag. Actually, it's a camera.
You were at the inquiry.
Of course you have. Of course. Yeah, you've got it all taken.
You come to cause trouble.
At the inquiry, I remember you.
Of course you do.
Please.
And Mr. Kincaid decides to set off in pursuit, still brandishing his stick. Undercover cameras don't take kindly to this sort of treatment, so you'll have to take my word for it. Our colleague managed to escape unscathed. But I couldn't honestly recommend footpath 37 for a quiet Sunday stroll with the children.
Oh, yes.
In some European countries, people are free to wander over open ground. In Britain, we have to stick to rights of way, so it's even more important they're kept open. My investigation shows in too many cases that's not happening, and walkers are facing serious dangers. Landowners are breaking the law, and they should be prosecuted. It's high time the government, as well as council